This is an It Came From GenX video.
So a couple game show notes are coming up in the news here, guys. So it's a changing of eras for a couple major game shows in a couple different ways here. Not much to talk about here. I just thought this was, sort of interesting. The Price is Right. They are moving locations, and that's fine. But what's of significance here is that they're moving out of the Bob Barker Studio 33 in Los Angeles, Television City. So that has been taping in that studio,
Wow.
that game show for more than 50 years. So as they finished up the season here, they're moving to a different location. Everything will continue. Drew Carey did sign a contract. He's still coming back as host. He's been there for like 16 years now.
Wow.
Believe it or not. Yeah, time flies, man. So yeah, he replaced Bob Barker in 2007 already. Nutty. And announcing his retirement from with the Wheel of Fortune, Pat Sajak has announced his retirement. That this upcoming season is going to be his last. Mr. Sajak is 76. He has been on that show for 41 years. This will be his 41st season. He started in 1981. Pretty amazing. We talked about him before on this show, I know, but what an amazing career. And I just have to imagine that would be one of the most fun careers I would have to guess that one could have. And then game shows as well.
I see it differently.
You don't think so?
It looks like that would be so boring day after day doing that. Oh,
I don't know, man. It's like you shoot a few episodes in a day. You don't do it all year round. You get summers off. It's not unlike a school teacher job in some respects.
That's great work. But you didn't say that. You said something different. Yeah, that would be a great job to have. Yeah, you said exciting. I don't see the excitement in it.
I think it depends on what show it is, and if you get to interact with people and all that. I think all that would be kind of, and to see people win.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about that show in particular. I'm talking about Wheel of Fortune in particular.
Okay, yeah, I can see both sides of that. And then looking at this week in pop culture history here, guys. Recently here in, let's see it, on July the 12th, back in 1976, the original Family Feud debuted with the great Richard Dawson. So game show news in general made me think about now certainly Family Feud has had different hosts. Obviously Pat Sajak is retiring, and they've announced that Ryan Seacrest
Wheel of Fortune
is going to replace him on Wheel of Fortune. That's right. So that doesn't thrill me necessarily, but obviously, throughout the years, different game show hosts have come on to host game shows where somebody else hosted before. Now, the original host may have retired. The original host may have passed away. They may have just stopped the show. They may have rebooted the show at some point or another, where they've done a retooling and they put it back out in the 80s or recently, etc. Networks, as we know, even now, in the summers, they've been doing some classic game show, episodes through the summers in the evening, just to pull in a different audience and all that, to give you something to watch while the network series are in reruns and all that. So, just interested, give me like your top 3, 5, no particular order, of game show hosts that are hosting a game show or replace somebody that you liked. Either would be more or at least as much as prior hosts. So we go around. We don't have to name all your list at once here. When we go around in a circle here and just, Keith, why don't you give us one, then we'll go to Skinner, and then we'll just kind of go around. How about that?
Okay. Well, definitely you mentioned Family Feud, and we all grew up watching that. The premise of the show was fun. See if your mind is like, the group that they surveyed. If your thoughts were along those thoughts. But man, that Steve Harvey just revitalized that show,
Oh man,
and just
yeah.
a whole nother way, a whole new generation of fans, even. Just an amazing transformation of a show. So he's number one on my list without question. I'm not real big on game shows. I absolutely detest Wheel of Fortune. I find it mundane. But even the show that is my favorite, uh, gosh, the people on it, they're like white piece of paper. And I'm a Jeopardy guy. I love Jeopardy. I just thought Trebek was just a classy guy, but I love things where you're learning something or you got to think. I love stuff like that. I've had some nights playing it where I've answered, 60% of the questions, and I've had nights where I don't know any of this stuff. But even the people on that show, they just all seem to be the same. And when he interviews them after that first round, it's just so like, so welcome, John. Says here you bought a cat. Yes, Alec. There was a cat for sale, and I got my money and I bought it. Excellent. All right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Right.
I grew up obviously watching Price is Right like everybody else. And Drew Carey I was a big fan of his when he was doing the Drew Carey show. I seen Drew Carey when he was on Star Search. That was my first time seeing him. So I've been following his career from the get-go. So when he took over Price is Right, that was great. I don't watch Price is Right as an adult, but I did grow up with Bob Barker. But my Family Feud's got to be my number one when we talk about a host taking over and just totally revitalizing that show.
Very good. Well, so much for going around, Skinner.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
So who do you got? Who do you got?
I had Steve Harvey as well on my list.
Oh yeah,
like Keith said, he just revitalized that whole show. They had some real stinkers as hosts on that show between Dawson and Steve Harvey, like Louis Armstrong, or not Louis Armstrong, but Louis
Anderson.
I mean, who thought that was a great idea? Did you guys know?
Was funny.
Yeah, I mean, he's a funny guy, but that was not his premise. That show was not. Did you guys know Pat Sajak was not the first host of the Wheel of Fortune?
Yes.
He actually took over after one season from Chuck Woolery. You think of Chuck Woolery,
Wow.
he did a lot of other ones, but yeah, it's funny how that one worked out. But you talked about Drew Carey. I have Aisha Tyler on here she took over for Drew Carey for Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah,
sure.
That's not necessarily a game show host, but she did host that show for Drew Carey and really didn't miss a beat.
No.
I first learned of her from the show 24. She was in the original 24 television show, and then got to know her after that. And she was a stand-up comedian, but she did really well as the host for that show, taking over for Drew Carey when he went to Price is Right. I won't do any more. I don't want to be like Keith, We'll let him go on.
Well, a couple you mentioned already. I had Pat Sajak on my list. I had Drew Carey. I have Steve Harvey for sure. A very funny man and Cleveland guy, by the way.
Yeah.
And Alex Trebek was not the original host of Jeopardy. Obviously, when that show restarted with him, he one of the greatest game show hosts of all time. A couple more growing up here. I used to love watching Password and Password Plus. So it was like Alan Ludden, who was like Betty White's husband. He had that show for a long time. And then when he retired, Bert Convey came on to take over that show. So, Bert Convey was definitely a staple in our young lives on hosting various game shows like Win, Lose, or Draw. He did for a long time and this and that. So, but he came on and did Password, and then it became Password Plus. I used to love that game show. I think Bert Convey did a great job with that. So, one of my favorite game show hosts of all time. Go ahead.
Then they did one more and did Super Password, which is his last one.
Yeah,
Betty
just a
White
lot of
was
fun.
the last co-host or last person on there.
There you go. So Bert Convy did a great job. And then I remember when they relaunched, I used to like watching the original Hollywood Squares of Peter Marshall in the 70s with Paul Lynde and
Oh,
all
that was
that
just
stuff.
fun. That was just fun. Yeah.
That was great, and Peter Marshall was phenomenal. And then you might remember they brought it back in the 80s with, remember John Davidson hosted that show. He used to be on That's Incredible and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Later became, but anyways, in the 80s, he was a staple there for a while. I thought John Davidson did a great job with Hollywood Squares in the 80s. I used to really like watching him.
What was the game
there.
show? Something to do with cards. It was like 3 screens, and they would pull the lever.
That was Joker's Wild.
Joker's Wild. That show I loved.
Yeah,
I love Joker's
that was a great show.
Yeah.
You know who came back, by the way, who hosted new episodes of the Joker's Wild?
Snoop Dogg.
That's right. I don't know if it's still on the air or not, but yeah. Okay, yeah, good stuff here, guys. If anybody out there listening has any any thoughts on some of your favorite game show hosts who replaced others, we'd love to hear from you as well.
Hey, this is Skinner from ItCameFromGenX. If you liked this video, please hit the subscribe button and like, and we'll see you next time.